Hey guys, it's Brad with College SportsCast. We are presented by the Fanboys. All right, guys, welcome back. It's Brad with College SportsCast. Welcome to College SportsCast. It is NFL Draft Night, and I have Taylor Bell with me, who is part of our The Fanboys team. Hey, Taylor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Right now, I'm doing great. I guess it depends on how my Falcons pick, the pick after this one with Vegas. So,
So we are at pick 7 right now as we're speaking,
Yep.
and the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock. And then he's a Falcons fan. That's what he's talking about. They pick 8, so they got the next pick after the Raiders. But we are 6 picks into this draft, and we've already had 2 trades and a quarterback taken that I didn't really think was going to be taken at 4, and he was, which some people said he was. But the Colts really entertained Will Levis a lot. Matter of fact, he was there this week on Monday, which kind of surprises me a little bit. But now we've got the Raiders on the clock, and says the pick is in. So we'll see when he comes to the podium here and see what happens with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I do want to add that there is a point to be made about the new head coach in Indianapolis. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was the offensive coordinator in Philly. So he has experience working with Jalen Hurts, who is, I think, the closest comp in terms of just physically that you can have for Anthony Richardson with a big.
And that's the reason that's what the analysis was saying tonight, was that he was the closest comp basically to what he was used to coaching and stuff. So, and they thought maybe that's the reason why the Indianapolis Colts went that way.
I'm really interested to see what some of these teams do that went quarterback, what they do with their later picks, if they go O-line or if they go receiver to add a weapon for them or something like that. All right, picks.
So the Houston Texans are still in the night so far, but the pick is in here. So
Tyree Wilson. All right, Falcons. Jalen Carter is still on the board.
Tyree Wilson, defensive end from Texas Tech, is the number 7 pick by the Las Vegas Raiders.
I still Oakland. It's all good.
I'm not used to the Las Vegas stuff yet.
I was. That's a little surprising because he's
the Chargers. I don't never like it. They're still the San Diego Chargers. I know they're not, but I mean,
as long as it includes the state of California, you're close enough. Like,
I mean, I know they're not, but whenever I'm trying to speak it or say it, it just comes out like that, and I can't. Like, I don't know. When they change cities like that, it takes me a long while, actually.
Exactly.
It just comes out that way. All right, so we're going to go back to the very first pick, the first pick of the night. And we'll kind of start with there. The Carolina Panthers had the first pick tonight, and their selection was Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, which really was not a surprise.
Yeah, that's I think anybody that had Bryce Young outside of the first overall spot, you're just overthinking the size factor. Because if you turn on the
Yeah.
tape, there's nobody that processes information quicker. He's the most accurate quarterback in the draft. He went up against arguably the best defense of all time in college football and put 41 points on their head. Now, he did lose to them in the national championship, but it's still, there were so many games where, especially in the 2021 season, where that's an 8-4, 9-3 team probably without Bryce Young being the hero, and just the poise that he has in the biggest moments, I think is the biggest intangible I think that he has that is kind of lacking.
Yeah, I mean the only knock on Bryce Young was his size, and I don't think the height is really the issue. It's the weight really that's the issue. I think.
Yeah,
I mean, he basically at about 190. And just the fierce beating velocity of hits and stuff in the NFL. There is some concern at for a player for his size, basically.
yeah,
And
and that he did take some good shots against some SEC defenders, but I think that definitely is still a question mark there. And then I think on top of that, one of the few gripes in terms of just play style, I guess you could have, is there were a few times where he would hold on to the ball too long and try to scramble outside the pocket and then force himself to take hits he shouldn't have. But I think that's definitely something that, with how quickly he's able to learn and pick up things in the game, I don't think it's anything too crazy to worry about.
and then the Houston Texans select number 2, and they take Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud with the number 2 pick, which again, even though the last few days you got some of that talk the last few days that comes in, and everybody was saying that he might take a slide. Um, Most people still, thought and had him at that second pick, I would say.
Yeah, I actually had him going all the way to 8, where I had my Falcons actually trading back with the Tennessee Titans because I thought both Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson would be off the board before him, but it looks like that S2 test didn't really matter as much.
Yeah, I mean there was some chatter about all that stuff this week, but that the last few days before the draft, you can't really listen to all that chatter. It's leading up to it before, like the week before, but the last few days, they're trying to fool you. They don't want you to know exactly who they're going to pick and that kind of stuff. So, there was some chatter that he would slide, but um, I'm really not that surprised that they stuck with C.J. Stroud at number 2. Now, number 3 was supposed to be the Arizona Cardinals, but we had the first trade of the night. The Houston Texans trade all the way up to number 3 from 12 with Arizona to take the 3rd pick in the draft, and they get what's rated the best defender in edge Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama. So they get 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's definitely something where we kind of saw this a little bit last year with the Jets, where they traded it back in and had multiple first-round picks, and a lot of people went out and said, "Oh, they won the draft." And you got to kind of have a little bit of the, hang on a minute, we have to see how these picks pan out. If we follow that logic, then it's real easy to be the best team in the draft. You just trade your entire future away to move into the first round, and
Right.
for like 4 different picks. So we'll have to
Right.
see. Anderson's definitely a guy compared to Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter. I don't think his ceiling is as high, but he has definitely the highest floor of any of the pass rushers, I think, in this class.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that he is exuberant talent as, the top high end, but he's going to be a steady player, I think. maybe 8 or 10 sacks, for a few seasons, something, for his career, peak of his career, I guess you would say, somewhere around that. Um, and he's more of a power rusher instead of a speed rusher, which is which is not what you normally see at the edge.
All right, Falcons pick is in. Let's see where we go here. It's right in front of your face. Don't let them burn down Flowery Branch. It's right in front of you. Get the local guy. Come on. Of course, when we wait like this, he does the most talking before the pick, obviously.
Right. Yeah, he's introducing some people before the pick. Big brothers and big sisters of Kansas City. Whoa.
There's gonna be riots in front of Flowery Branch over that.
I had heard that they might trade. Matter of fact, I done my last show on Tuesday. I said that I had heard that Atlanta might take Bijan Robinson.
Yeah,
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
At the 8th pick, and everybody was like, no, he won't go that high. And I said, I'm telling you, I have heard that's who they might pick at 8.
Yeah, he's definitely in terms of just sheer talent, he's a top 3 player in the draft. If you take away positional value as a factor, now that's, in my opinion, that's a huge deal. I would have probably gone not even not specifically just Jalen Carter, but there's plenty of good corners on the board. There's pass rushers on the board.
Christian Gonzalez is still there.
So I think this is definitely it's a do or die year for the Falcons, because this is now the 3rd year in a row that the Falcons have gone offensive skill position player in the first round. They went Kyle Pitts in 2021 at 4th overall with a tight end. They went Drake London at receiver 8th overall, and then they're back at 8, and they get a running back in Bijan Robinson. So,
well, I mean, Bijan Robinson is a very talented back, and I think he's going to be a great player for a few years. The problem is with running back, your career and being peak doesn't last very long most of the time.
And on top of that, I do want to add specifically in the Falcons situation, they picked up Tyler Algier in the 5th round last year, and he was a 1,000-yard rusher. So that kind of shows you in of itself what they're doing. But it looks like Philly has actually traded up to 9.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at. So
moved up 1 pick. And
that was supposed to be Chicago. That's where they traded back to from the number 1 with Carolina. Why would they trade up this 1 pick? It has to be a defender, doesn't it?
They're probably going to get Jalen Carter then, because they already drafted Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis from Georgia's defense last year. So that won't surprise me at all if they go for all 3 of them. That's kind of been a theme since Kirby Smart has built some of these elite defenses at Georgia. Is there's pretty much 2 teams that have taken a majority of the top guys, with it being Philly taking those guys, and then Green Bay also has a defense completely loaded with Georgia defenders: Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Eric Stokes. Right. Like there's half the defense in Green Bay.
Yeah, it's Georgia defenders.
Yeah. Which then it's like we could see Jalen Carter go here to 9 to Philly again, and then I won't be surprised if Nolan Smith ends up going to Green Bay again, and we have another.
Well, that's one of the other picks. There was two. Well, there was three guys. We done our show on Tuesday. It was before they had finalized. No, maybe it was Sunday's show. But we done a show with the Green Bay guy on with us, and it was before they'd finalized the Rodgers trade, and they were still at 15. But now they're 13 as long as they don't do another trade here tonight. I think there's three guys that I think that I believe that the Packers should take, and I'm actually hoping it's two, really. I told you before we come on, I think I told you who I want. But Nolan Smith is another one. If he's there, I'd love for them to take Nolan Smith.
It just seems like, I don't know if it just started. It feels like the COVID season, but the Kuipers and the McShays, like the media boards, I guess, just seem they get further and further off what the teams actually do year after year. Like I think, which is, you think it would be the opposite because of social media and and how quickly the info can get leaked from inside an organization. But it just goes to show you how I think quickly things can change based on how draft night goes.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising to see a running back picked in the top 10, just to be honest.
Yeah, it's not a good pick.
I mean, I think he's a great player. I think he'll be a great player for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It's
just, I'm just, even with the production, even if you get elite production from that position, it's still such a dependent position. And there's so many other guys that can be a bigger impact than what a running back can do. Now, the only way I've said leading up to the draft, the only way you could sell me on getting Bijan is if they end up using him in a role similar to how the 49ers use Deebo Samuel, where you put him at receiver and he acts as both. And now he did lead Texas in receptions last year, which is kind of an interesting dynamic as a running back. But it's, again, like you said, it's about the long-term extensions and the longevity of the position.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the beating they take,
And then Jalen Carter goes to the Eagles at 9. Yep.
That's who they get, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter goes number 9, which you were right on them moving up to get him.
Yeah, that's a very common. It just keeps going.
Okay, so I guess Chicago is picking 10, and then Tennessee is at 11. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm sitting here. I'm a Kentucky fan. Taylor's a Georgia fan, and I'm kind of shocked, really, that Levis has not been taken. He's still on the board. I will be really shocked if the Titans don't take Levis at 11.
Yeah,
I just don't. I don't see Chicago taking him at 10, but I will be really shocked if the Titans don't take him at 11.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I still wonder if where Skoronski ends up in all of this as well. Maybe he goes to Chicago here because they already have Justin Fields in place. Maybe Tennessee wants to improve the very poor offensive line they had last year. We'll have to see. Levis, I think Detroit's kind of sold on Jared Goff at this point. I don't think they would get Levis.
Yeah. I don't think Detroit's going to pick a quarterback. If he doesn't go 11, then I think he might go 14 to New England. That
Yeah,
that would be my next best guess.
yeah,
And if that doesn't happen, then he'll go 19 to Tampa Bay.
yeah. Another name we haven't mentioned is Flowers out of Boston
Zay
College.
Flowers. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely. I think he's probably the first receiver off the board. He could
See,
go.
I kind of think JSN from Ohio State will be the first receiver off the board, but maybe.
You don't. I think it's the Cooper Cup comp, and then there's the Antonio Brown comp for Flowers. So
Yeah.
it's all depending. That's I guess where the team need if they what they're looking for in scheme fit. I think kind of
Right.
also is going to play a factor
Yeah.
point as well.
I tell you what, if Jalen Carter plays ball, he is one of the most talented guys in this draft. But he also has some legal issues going on too, I think. So
Yeah, and that's definitely that's what worried me. Um, if you keep up with the Falcons at all, that's definitely the given the legal situations. There's guys that the Falcons have passed up on for less than that, based off of
yeah,
character and the kind of regurgitated phrase you'll see in the media is we want smart, tough, physical football players that are they're big character guys, both Arthur Smith, the head coach, and Terry Fontenot, the GM. So
right.
that's definitely something where
Well, and then there's also been question whether or not Jalen Carter really wants football as bad as some of these other guys is too.
yeah, this is eerily
You're a
similar.
Georgia guy, so you tell me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So Seth Emerson with the Athletic, who is he's been working as a reporter with UGA for years, said that he did not get the notion of any work ethic problems within the locker room at Georgia when it comes to Jalen Carter. Now, that's just one source, but I think that the interesting part of all of this is a lot of people don't know. Jalen Carter's from Apopka High School down in Florida, which is the same high school as Warren Sapp. And Warren Sapp actually had a similar situation happen to him on draft night where I believe it was a drug test, some marijuana related issue got leaked about him only
and he dropped. Yeah.
and he dropped out of the first round when talent wise he was a top 3 pick. So
Right.
and
Yeah.
then he obviously went on to become a Hall of Famer. So that'll be
Yeah.
kind
And
of
Jalen Carter has that kind of talent. I mean, for sure. So, you know, I think it's a great pick by Philly at 9, to be honest with you. So we'll see when it comes to that. But Jalen Carter is a talented, huge human being. I mean, huge human being.
and
All
guys
right. So,
guys that big aren't supposed to move like that either.
yeah, man. I mean, just it's unbelievable. All right, so we went through 3. At 4, the Indianapolis Colts picked before we come on the air, and they selected Anthony Richardson from Florida. So I want to get that in before we was on the air. And number 5, the Seattle Seahawks select Devin Witherspoon, cornerback. So I want to get those 2 in and get your thoughts on those 2.
So if you keep up with me at all, obviously Florida part aside, as Darnell Wright goes to the Bears at 10, they go offensive line. I'm not high on Anthony Richardson. I think there's a lot of that's said about him when it comes to his athletic ability and things that have nothing
I'm
to
kind
do.
of surprised by that pick, actually, by the Bears.
Yeah, but a lot of things going on with Richardson that I think don't really relate to the quarterback position whatsoever. So I think it takes a real Andy Reid like play caller to be able to work with him and develop him.
He's
Now
just
with
so raw. I mean, he has a high ceiling, but he has a very low floor,
exactly.
if you ask me.
Yeah. Now it's with Witherspoon, was my top corner in the draft. In a loaded corner class, he plays with tremendous physicality. He has great ball skills. He tested well. He kind of just checks all the boxes at the DB position. Now pairing him with Tariq Woolen in Seattle, that is a very interesting secondary combination that Pete Carroll has assembled in Seattle. So maybe they're trying to go back to the roots of the Legion of Boom there a little bit, but we'll have to see how things shake out there.
Yeah. And then at 6, right before we went on the air, the Detroit Lions traded with the Cardinals again in a second trade. They went back from 3 to 12 and then 12 back to 6. And Arizona Cardinals picked 6. And remind me who they selected now that I'm sitting here talking about it.
Paris Johnson out of Ohio State.
Paris Johnson Jr., yeah, the left tackle out of Ohio State. And so that was right number 6.
Yeah, that was who reportedly Kyler Murray wanted them to get, and that seems like after not doing that, not going in Kyler's direction, they've decided to listen to their quarterback that they've given this big extension to, and he's finally going to.
I think Paris Johnson Jr. is probably the best left tackle in the draft.
Yeah, it's definitely between him and Broderick Jones out of Georgia. And Arizona's in a situation, they've got a long rebuild ahead. They've got plenty of depth that they need to add to the roster. So trading back and improving.
And they got a first-round pick by trading back, I think, like next year, I think.
Yeah.
And then they traded back up to 6. So it really didn't, you know what I mean? Like they get an extra pick next year and then move back up to 6 and get their offensive tackle.
Yeah, so it's
their left tackle.
Yeah, they're able to add extra spots, extra depth to the roster, which is kind of what you do when you know you have a rebuild ahead, is rebuild the trenches, add picks, and then try to see if you can assemble weapons around good trench play that you've hopefully developed early on in the rebuilding process.
Right. All right, so that kind of gets us through the first 6 picks. We come on right as Las Vegas Raiders. We're selecting 7th. So that kind of gets us through the top 6 picks that we missed before we come on the air tonight. So I wanted to get through that. So Tennessee Titans is now on the clock at 11. And like I said, this is one of the places I think that Will Levis could land. I'm actually kind of surprised that he's still on the board, but, it is what it is. I did think that there was a chance that he could still be on the board. But I'll be honest with you. I really was kind of surprised by the Colts. Will Levis was visited with the Colts just this week, on Monday, this week. And that was like his 3rd or 4th visit with them on Monday. So I don't know. But they went AR. They went Anthony Richardson. And no other quarterback has been taken since then. So at number 4, the top 3 of the top 4 were quarterbacks. And then no quarterback's been taken since.
And the one non-quarterback in the top 4 was an edge rusher whose job is to go after the quarterback. And yet the Falcons will draft a running back at 8 because that's –
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how it went so far.
I will say this, with the draft picks, somewhat of a pessimist for a right reason with what the Falcons have done. The most recent draft pick that I actually liked in the first round was AJ Terrell. So I didn't like Pitts, I didn't like Drake London, and I didn't like Drake London, and I don't like Bijan. So I've always been the just kind of
Well, I mean, it just depends on how they use Bijan Robinson. If they were using him in that Debo Samuel thing that you were talking about, role, then I I think he could definitely have a 5-6 year run in a role like that at least, and be a good ball, and be one of the top players in the league.
yeah, it's partially just I think the MO too of Arthur Smith. He was an offensive lineman at North Carolina. Some of the best rushing attacks, the best seasons that Derrick Henry had were when he was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee. He has greatly improved the offensive line since coming in, and they extended Chris Lindstrom, one of the better guards in the league. I believe it was a 5-year deal. So um, running the ball is what Arthur Smith wants to do. So you know that at least if you're looking at it from a positive end of the spectrum, they're not going to draft a guy at 8 and then give him 15 touches a game. They are going to force feed Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier the ball and take as much pressure off of Desmond Ridder at quarterback as they possibly can. Titans pick is in. Ooh.
You was right, Peter Skoronski. Yep. They did go tackle. They went Malik Willis last year in the first round. I wasn't really sold that they were sold on Malik Willis.
Yeah, I think it's, from what I've heard as far as the situation with Willis, is they actually drafted a quarterback last year because the ownership wanted them to go and get a quarterback because they were disappointed with the regression of Ryan Tannehill. But you can't, especially a guy as raw as Malik Willis, I was kind of scratching my head at wanting to move on from him, at least because he's a very raw prospect that you have to give him more than a year. When Hugh Freeze himself, I believe the quote was, he's 2 years away from being a year away, was what he told a lot of the coaching staff when they were calling him at Liberty to ask about Malik Willis. So pretty solid pick for Tennessee. I was thinking they might also go receiver just because outside of Treylon Burks from Arkansas, there's a lot of names that only the biggest of Madden fans would probably recognize in that receiver room.
So Detroit is now picking 12th. When the draft started, they were at 6th. They traded back with Arizona. So they're now picking 12th.
And now we have a display that just came up that says the Lions have 5 of the next 43 picks. So they definitely went and added.
Yep. So they added some picks tonight for sure.
And I can tell you right now that what they are going to do is they are going to build that defense from the ground up with those picks. Probably going to spend almost all of those picks, if not all of them, on defense.
Yeah, so they're at 12. So between here and the 60th pick, they have 5 picks.
So that's a good way to add some top-end talent for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're probably right. The Lions were close this year, close to a playoff spot. They turned it around a little bit. They had a pretty decent offense. So the pick is in.
Jahmyr Gibbs at 12.
Wow.
So he joins DeAndre Swift in the Lions' backfield.
That is a big surprise. That's the biggest surprise of the night so far.
This is telling you what people think of the running backs in this class. That 2 running backs go in the top 15.
Okay, Jahmyr Gibbs was mostly thought of as a first-round draft pick, but everything I seen had him 25th or lower.
Yeah, going to one of the playoff teams that just needed an extra weapon to help out.
Philly, matter of fact, Philly was one of them, like at 30 or something. That a lot of people was selecting Jahmyr Gibbs at. 12 is a reach. I mean, I like Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a great player, but
incredibly,
I feel like that's
incredibly shifty. The one knock on him is there were multiple games last year, mainly the Texas A&M game and the Texas game, where Gibbs actually was started and then didn't take the majority of the snaps because he was struggling in pass protection. So that's the biggest knock on his game. But a guy that's as shifty and as explosive as he is, it's a lot more. You're a lot more worried about finding ways to get it.
I'm still surprised they didn't go defense.
Yep.
Christian Gonzalez, Miles Murphy.
Yeah, this seems to be a sign that a lot of these front offices weren't as high on the defensive.
Well, the Packers seem happy. No, that's the Lions, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. They had the Packers thing on the clock. I thought that was their room. I thought, what? Because the Packers are picking next at 13.
All that green on the stage looking like St. Patrick's Day.
They need a backup.
All right, Mr. Packers fan, who are you going?
They need a backup.
Who are you picking?
Will Levis is still on the board. They need a backup. I will say that.
I work in the Kentucky fan a little bit.
I will say that they do need a backup. They traded their starter. Jordan Love's now going to be their starter. So I would think they need somebody to fill in. But I'm not 100% sold that Jordan Love's the answer. He'll be the starter this year, and we'll see. I actually think that they're going to go JSN from Ohio State. That's where I think they'll go, but they also could go Nolan Smith.
I do find it, if they go receiver, that's very fascinating to me to do that to immediately all these years where you don't get an offensive receiver or a weapon in the first round for Aaron
immediately
Rodgers,
after trading Rodgers,
and then spend a first round pick on a receiver.
Yep, because they haven't done it in years. It's been years. But I had a Green Bay Packer insider on with me on Sunday, and he says that they're really high on Jackson Smith. I can't say his last name. I can't say his last name. Njigba. Yep. I can't never say his last name. I always say JSN. It's so much easier. Yep. But they did say he's really high on them. Actually, the 2 tackles that have been taken were 2 names. One of them was just a few minutes ago, and then Paris Johnson Jr. was 2 names that he mentioned that they could pick, which are off the board now. Kincaid, the tight end from Utah, is a name that he mentioned, and Nolan Smith. Now, I'm throwing out Will Levis because Will Levis is sitting there, and hey, Green Bay needs a at least needs a backup quarterback. You can go ahead and be, training him to be the backup for the next year or so.
I think if Levis doesn't go to New England at 14, then we're kind of scratching our heads here.
Yeah, I really am. It's either so. I think that it's possible he goes at 14 to the Patriots, and if that doesn't happen, he may slide to 19.
Yeah, I'm gonna take
with Tampa Bay.
I'm gonna take a guess and say that Green Bay goes JSN. We get Levis goes to New England at 14, and then I'm thinking Zay Flowers to the Jets at 15 to give Rodgers that weapon.
To give Rodgers a
weapon there. So that's what I'm rolling with for these next 3 picks. So now JSN with the playing at Ohio State, he's going to be able to handle the cold weather. So that's not a factor.
Yeah, and he tested really, really strong.
Wow. I won't spoil it for you. I know you're a little behind me.
Lucas Van Ness? What? I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's not anybody that I thought they would be.
I'll be honest, outside of if you just want to throw quarterbacks out the window because of the unpredictability, that's looking like that's giving the Falcons a run for their money in terms of the reach of the draft. I think I probably would have him. But there's a lot of guys I would have picked before I would have gone Lucas Van Ness that are still board there.
Miles Murphy's still out there.
No, you have Nolan Smith
Smith is still out there.
Got plenty of. There's a loaded tight end class as well. If you want to have another guy to pair with, Onion as well.
Dalton Kincaid, I thought would have been a much better pick myself, but.
Well, you even have not even just him. You have Sam Laporta also from Iowa, and you have Luke Musgrave is on the board still too. Now that's it. Now I think both of those guys are probably more towards the early second round, late first than they are.
Well, Michael Mayer is another one that people at early on was saying possibly could be a first round guy, but now he's kind of fallen a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't test very well at the combine.
Yeah, right.
Darnell Washington, another tight end. I gotta mention the Georgia guy.
Yeah, Darnell Washington is one for sure. He's a monster size. He's just not one because Georgia has Brock Bowers. That's all you see is, Brock Bowers coming out of the tight end room. Washington didn't get a whole lot of looks his way. You know what I mean? Like,
what you see with Washington, if you go and watch, just count how many of plays that Georgia has where they have a throw that's less than 5 yards downfield that ends on 20 yards because Darnell Washington's blocking downfield and clears out.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a monster.
2 or 3 defenders, so
yeah, absolutely. I mean he's a monster. He really is. I'm just saying. As a tight end, you didn't see him. It was mostly him blocking and doing things, but when he did get the ball, he looks great.
Yeah, he's a tremendous red zone threat just because of his size alone.
Right.
It's hard to cover. You can't put a linebacker on him because he's too fast and he's too big for linebackers as a tight end. So.
I'm shocked that the Packers traded up at a 15 to get Lucas Van Ness. I mean, I just really am. I mean, they could have got Lucas Van Ness at 15. They didn't need to trade for that.
Let's see what Pittsburgh does. Typically, Mike Tomlin and his staff, what they decide to do, known as a team that can handle.
Wait a second. Did Pittsburgh trade with the Patriots?
Yep, looks like they did. I just didn't even think about that.
Because the Patriots were 14.
Yep. Pittsburgh is now at 14. Still got the Jets at 15. And I believe Washington was started at 16, I think. So all right. What does Pittsburgh do? Very well could go offensive line. Still,
Yeah, they might go Broderick Jones here, actually, from Georgia.
and I would even think going corner, getting a Christian Gonzalez just off of that's kind of their main weakness defensively is the secondary, and he's a guy that he was corner one going fifth or sixth in some mocks, and he's made it all the way to at least to 14. So
Yeah, Christian Gonzalez.
yeah, out of Oregon.
I mean, most of the time he was just about most mocks had him in the top 10 at least.
Yep.
I have to say the last two picks I'm pretty surprised by, both of them. Jahmyr Gibbs and Lucas Van Ness. I mean, I'm not saying that both of them might not have been picked in the late first round, but that's a nearly 18 to 20 position reach, if you ask me.
Yeah. That's got to be just betting on being a high-powered offense and then using the depth pieces to build the defense back up, because that's seems to be a growing theme is use your early picks on offense, use your mid-round picks to build up your defense and have depth over star talent on the defensive side.
Picks in.
There he goes. There's a Georgia guy off the board.
Broderick Jones. That's who I said they might go with there. Yep.
I wonder how much of a salesman George Pickens was in that front office there.
Yeah. I thought that's might be what they go with there when they traded up, is to get Broderick Jones. I am surprised that Christian Gonzalez is still on the board, and Levis. There's two that, most people had in the top 7 or 8 at least that's still on the board.
Yep. I think Jones, obviously with Wright, you have the technique and the pass blocking prowess. Broderick Jones, definitely his strength. He's probably the best run blocking tackle in the draft this year. You'll obviously see it if you're watching ESPN, the highlight reel. They pull him a lot. They use him in the screen game a ton because he's got the mobility to go out and he can get to the defensive backs in space, really open it up for the Georgia receivers to do damage after the catch.
Yeah, I mean I think he's a good pick there. I mean, they got Pickens last year, so they got a second-year quarterback in there. Get some help for him at the offensive line. I think it's a good pick, good strong pick for Pittsburgh.
Solid pick for a team that's historically drafted very well.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick for him there. And Broderick Jones is a good offensive tackle. So now we got the New York Jets on the clock at 15. I had been hearing honestly, for months, I have heard that they might take Brian Branch here, actually. I don't know if that's who they go with or not, but I had been hearing for quite a while, actually. But now, early on, that was like January, February, 1st of March. I was hearing it pretty strong. The last month or so, it's kind of died down a little bit. So I don't know if that's what they do, or if, but early on, I had heard that a lot.
Yeah, that's a versatile guy. It definitely seems like the Jets are really trying to focus on defense with how they construct their roster, and Robert
Yeah.
Saleh is going to be able to know how to figure out
But
how to.
since they just traded for Rodgers, you might be right. They might go wide receiver here.
Yeah, if that's what I would if I were in New York, I would go Zay Flowers here. That's my pick, especially because we're probably going to see them part ways with Corey Davis, and you got to make your new quarterback happy. I think so.
You might be right. That might be who they go with. I mean, I guess, you know, they probably would go with Flowers, maybe over JSN,
Quentin Johnson as well.
Quentin Johnston, and I'm trying to think of the fourth guy that I had mentioned that would probably be a first rounder receiver.
Johnson, JSN, and Flowers. Others.
There was another one. There was a fourth guy, and I can't even remember who it is off the top of my head right now.
I mean, was Hyatt early in the draft process, but he's kind of fallen off.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Hyatt.
I'm thinking Cedric Tillman would go higher than him, but I don't think he goes in the first round.
Oh, it's Jordan Addison.
Yeah. That's
Jordan
right.
Addison. I knew there was another guy that was. There's four of them that I think could be first rounders.
Yeah.
Wide receivers. It's Jordan Addison.
Very interesting.
USC.
Very interesting to me how last year's receiver class was so loaded, and then this year is kind of the opposite of those.
Yeah, I think there's only four that will go first round, and we'll see by the end of the night. But Jalen Hyatt might be the next one to go in the second round, maybe. If I was gonna, might be there. But those four, I think, will go first round. At least that's what I thought before the night started anyway. Now we're sitting at 15, and none have come off the board. But there's a few teams coming up that I think will go wide receiver.
Yep.
Like in that 18 to 22 range.
And I anticipate if there's any team position-wise I would bet on, I'm thinking Cincinnati goes tight end here at 28, but we got a long way to go to get there.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Interested to see if Washington actually moves on from Chase Young or if they just decide to stick with it and maybe try to see if they can get more value out of him after the draft or before the trade deadline, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, before the Rodgers trade, I really thought that Jets were going to go defense here. But you might be right after they get Aaron Rodgers. They may try to pick up a wide receiver for him.
They're taking their sweet old time with making this pick.
They sure are. Seems like it's taken forever. They're taking it down to the last second here. The Jets are on this pick.
Absolutely.
They're supposed to have 10 minutes, so we'll see. Some of these teams ain't taking the full 10, but the Jets sure did.
Yeah, there's some of them. It's funny. Some of them take 45 seconds. Others are taking the full.
Yeah.
Leave it to a New York team to try to meet eat up as much of the TV time as they can possibly get with their pick. So
So I have to say for the Packers, man, if they were going to go for a reach, especially at defensive end, I was really hoping it was going to be Nolan Smith.
yeah, it just made so much sense with all of the Georgia defenders on that
And
team.
by reach, I don't mean his talent. I just his size is a little bit undersized for a defensive end, for an edge rusher in the NFL. But you go by the way he plays and his talent, and I actually think that Nolan Smith might be the best defender in this draft when it's all said and done.
Yeah, he's probably he's such a smart player and such a great leader that he's got one of the higher floors as well.
I actually think he might be one of the best defensive players, the best defensive player in this draft when you look back on it 5 or 6 years from now.
Yeah, with the
I really do.
Yep.
I've been saying that for a while.
Let's see. I'm really interested to see what Minnesota does at 23. There's a lot of these.
This has definitely been longer than 10 minutes on this pick.
They're letting the pick. This pick has been in, it seems like, forever. So
Yeah. Maybe Kamish had to use the bathroom or something.
Is this a Make-A-Wish kid making the pick, I guess?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So Mel Kiper's best available is Will Levis, Christian Gonzalez, and Nolan Smith. 1, 2, 3. Zay Flowers is 4.
All right.
Jackson Smith, Najigba, something like that. I can never say it. It's 5.
Will McDonald out of Iowa State.
Wow. I'm actually surprised by some of these. They did go defense, but
I did not have him going in the first round at all. I'll say that.
so I seen a few people that had him sneaking in like 30th or 31st, but that's about it. And that's just a few people that I seen had him sneaking in the first round. Most everybody else had him high in the second round.
Yeah.
The last 3 picks have been reach. All of them have been reaches, if you ask me.
Yeah. It's just I don't.
Well, except for Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones at 14 was all right. It was 12, 13, and 15.
It's maybe it's a ego thing. I don't know. It looks like there's a hyper focus on physical tools with some of these guys, and I think with when you're talking about the best players, like maybe it's just the SEC homer. And
I'm going to give you a defender that I think will be better than McDonald here, and Lucas Van Ness. And he's still out there. And I think he might go late in the first round, but he might be a second round pick. And that's Jack Campbell from Iowa.
Yeah.
I like Jack Campbell from Iowa, and I would pick him over Will McDonald from Iowa State.
A guy that I liked a lot as well. I believe it's Felix Anaduke Uzama out of Kansas State as well. Is a guy that I was very high on in terms of how he could project at the pro level as well.
Yeah.
So, but it seems like
I mean,
we just have
that was I don't know. I mean, I just feel like that those were a few picks of reaches. Now, Broderick Jones at 14 for Pittsburgh, I think was a good pick. And I'm not saying that Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to be a good player. I'm not saying that Lucas Van Ness can't be a good player. I'm not saying that Will McDonald can't be a good player. I just think for where they went in the picking order, that it's a little high.
Yeah. Just from a positional value standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Will McDonald, honestly, you might have been able to get him at 34. And you just picked him at 15.
And then that leads to that becomes an interesting point to where like you want to be able to get guys as late as you can get them, because then that helps out with the salary cap, because you're paying them less money when they're picking later.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons you actually will see some teams trade back, is because they know that they can get the guy that they want 8 picks later and
Right.
that much less down the line. So it's something that you have to, if you're really playing the long game, which is very rare in this league, that's what you're going to see teams do. Now that's kind of, almost looks like that's kind of what's the shift in the opposite direction is everybody's looking at everything year by year now. So there's the saying, NFL stands for not for long. So
yeah. Yeah, your career's not nearly as long in the NFL as it is the rest of these leagues.
Yep.
I mean, you just have ferocious, violent hits all the time, and I mean, just man fights in the middle. You know what I mean, like every play. And it takes a toll on you.
Yeah, a lot goes on that we don't see in the gray area. That's a lot of the big guys like to call it. So,
yeah, for sure.
Very interested to see what Washington is the team that can go in so many different directions here. The 2 main tackles are off the board. Receivers, pretty much all the big receivers are still there.
Is this where we finally see a tight end? Maybe.
I mean, who's playing? Is it still going to like up in the air quarterback situation? So
yeah,
maybe Osiris Torrance out of Florida here. He's still up there.
Maybe. I mean, most of the mocks that I seen had him in the 24, 25, 26, 27 range.
Yeah, about as high as you'll see a guard typically get picked, but we're seeing 2 running backs in the top 15. So
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, you're right.
Who knows at this point?
You're definitely right. I would have never, ever said we would have 2 running backs in the top 12.
I would have.
When's the last time in the NFL draft that's happened?
Yeah, I would have bet if there was any bet I would have done, it would have been Detroit to get a DB. So that tells you what I know here. Whoa. Okay.
Emmanuel Forbes.
Fix it.
Have people completely forgot about Christian Gonzalez or what?
Maybe they just didn't see him as highly as some of the media did. Forbes is definitely he's a pick artist for sure.
Yeah.
So, and now New England's pick is immediately in
Oh, he's got great ball skills.
for sure.
He definitely has great ball skills for a corner.
Had a pick six on Will Levis as well.
Yep.
Which they're about to immediately show as I say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's got great ball skills, that's for sure. I mean, he just read Will Levis. That's one of them plays. Quarterback just turns and you know exactly where he's going with the ball.
What does New England do? Maybe Levis finally gets picked here at 17.
I'm really surprised that he's still on the board tonight, but I think so. You know, they have Jones from Bama, and he had a good rookie season. This past year, it wasn't quite as good.
They also did a top 30 interview with Zay Flowers as well. So he's a guy that they could get here as well. If they believe in Mac Jones, they'll probably look to add a weapon at receiver for him. So that's another possibility here.
It is.
All right, they're picking now.
Yeah, their pick was in almost immediately. Christian Gonzalez is the pick for New England Patriots at 17.
Back-to-back corners. I'm interested to see what they got in the trade where they moved back to 17, what they got in return for that.
I think they showed it a while ago, I believe. I think they got a 4th-round pick this year.
Okay.
I think they got a 4th-round pick, I believe. It was like 160 or 170 or something like that. I mean, Christian Gonzalez here at 17 is a pretty good pickup. I mean, most people had him going 6, 7, 8 in mock drafts.
Yeah, we know that Belichick knows what he's talking about when it comes to defensive backs and defense in general. So maybe this is something where he pulled a fast one on everybody. Maybe this is something where there's a reason why he lasted until 17, despite some of the mocks having him in the top 10. But that's definitely, I'm surprised a lot of these Big 12 guys going higher than I anticipated. So maybe there's a bit more trust in that conference as a true Power 5 conference than some of us non-Big 12 folks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm an SEC guy too, so you know, you got Iowa State going, and you know,
what's Detroit do here at 18? They went
is
running.
that who's picking? Is Detroit?
Yep.
They're the ones that they just picked up. Surely to goodness, they go defense here, don't they?
They have to. Nolan Smith. Well, across from Aiden Hutchinson, that's a possibility. They could go. I mean,
Nolan Smith would be an amazing pick for them. I'm telling you, I am really, really high on Nolan Smith. If Nolan Smith doesn't get hurt and he plays for Georgia this year, I think Nolan Smith is easily a top 5 pick.
Yep.
Easily. He might even be a top 2 or 3 pick. if he plays this past season. I mean, he got hurt. He got hurt, and I mean, I kind of believe, and you're a Georgia guy, and you may say that it's different, but I kind of believe that he just didn't rush back. That he probably could have pushed himself and played a little bit this past season, towards the end of the year, if he would have really pushed himself to play. I don't think that I don't think that it was worth it, basically, for him to do that.
He tore his pec from the bone, so I don't really think. Yeah, I don't think it's. And he didn't get. This was not. His injury was not. Say it wasn't a week 1 type deal where he has a full season to come back as well. It happened in the middle of the season as well. So I think that is factored in as well.
Well, it was he just played 1 game, didn't he? Or no?
I think he played at least. He might have. I think he got injured maybe in the Samford game, but I know he played. At least I think I'm picturing him playing in the South Carolina game. He might have been injured in the South Carolina game. So,
okay. I was thinking he just played the first game of the season and that was it.
Yeah. Big win for Detroit.
But I still say if he hadn't have gotten hurt and he would have played all year, I to be honest with you, I think he would be considered the best defender in the draft over Will Anderson. Everybody had Will Anderson there. And I kind of think Nolan Smith would have that spot.
Yeah, it really I think also just looking at the production, because Nolan does last in 2021 did a lot of the kind of non-stat book related things. He plays the run incredibly well. That's his biggest strength. But this is a passing driven league. So maybe he showed improvement in his pass rushing moves, I think, throughout his career. So it's kind of the main deal is how much do you factor in, how much weight do you put on him being a great run defender versus wanting a guy that has polished pass rush moves, a quick first step, things like that. His first step is great, but in terms of just technique, I don't want to say physicality, in terms of just polished pass rushing ability, Will Anderson definitely beats him in that regard. And they both have a similar frame, similar kind of size, question marks, I guess you could say, for
right.
It's Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, and they play the same position and essentially the same defense. So
right, yeah. I just think that his explosiveness is probably better than Will Anderson.
Yeah, that's
off the ball.
Definitely, there's definitely a conversation there, I think. There's always one guy that slips back in the draft and is a steal off of having a short season the year before. Maybe Nolan Smith is that guy. So that's what we'll have to see.
Well, I mean, to be quite honest with you, before the combine, most people had Nolan Smith outside of the first round. But then he went to the combine and really impressed with, all of his numbers and everything that he was doing at the combine.
Yeah, that's a lot like Trayvon Walker as well at Georgia was a guy that was like that in terms of the combine. I myself had him as an early second round pick, and then he ended up going first overall because of how much the clinic that he put on at the combine. So
yeah,
the versatility, played how many guys could play a 3 technique all the way out to a wide 9. I mean, you can't coach that. You can't teach that. So let's see what Detroit does here. I wonder if they anticipated both the corners going back to back like that right in front of them. I wonder if that.
Yeah, I don't know about that because They probably thought they could get one of them there, probably. I I still, if I'm going defense here, I'm going Nolan Smith.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah,
saying it for a while.
I feel like we've said that for like
I've been
5
saying it
years.
for a while. Seems like
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
All right.
Jack Campbell.
They go defense.
Hey, it's a guy I just mentioned just a little bit ago. He's actually one of my favorite defenders in this draft. I really think Jack Campbell is a fantastic linebacker. He is side to side, all over the field. He can he makes plays. He is around the ball no matter if the ball is on this side or that side. He's just there all the time. He's a fantastic linebacker. And like I said, side to side, he's there. He can be there. He plays really smart and can defend in coverage too.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Matt Milano with the Buffalo Bills in terms of a comp, just sideline to sideline.
Yep.
Doesn't get fooled by the eye candy.
Nope. I think he can be a Pro Bowler. I really do.
Yeah.
Jack Campbell.
Tampa didn't take too much time. They could go quarterback here.
Yeah, this is a quarterback position, I think, at Tampa. I think they could go Will Levis. And if he doesn't go here, then to be quite honest with you, I think the next possible place that he would go would be Minnesota. That's what I think.
I saw plenty of mocks where they actually had Minnesota being one of the teams to trade up to get a quarterback in this draft. So,
yeah. If Levis doesn't go here at 19 to the Bucks, I think Minnesota picks 22 or 23. I can't remember now.
I think 23, I believe.
23.
I think Jacksonville is 24 after them.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. It's a lot easier to remember the picks than what number everybody is before the draft, and then the draft gets going, and you just kind of It's like a trade or two get made, and then it's everything just your memory just gets all shuffled around.
So I knew they were in they're like 22 or 23. I knew they were in Minnesota, but the Bucks here at 19, I think could take a quarterback. I think Minnesota could take a quarterback. And then after that, I'm not sure who would take a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, it could be a very long night for Mr. Levis.
Honestly, if one of those two teams don't take him, I don't know if there's – because then you get to the playoff team, Minnesota was too, but, you get to the ones that, made it down towards the end, and, none of them are taking quarterbacks. Cincinnati's not taking a quarterback. The Bills aren't taking a quarterback. Philly's not taking a quarterback. Kansas City's not taking a quarterback.
Elijah Cansey at 19.
See, that's kind of a reach too. Most people had him in the second round that I knew.
He's got really good physical tools. He's a fast edge guy, which if you know anything about Todd Bowles' scheme, it's blitz, blitz, blitz. So,
yeah.
He could play edge. He's a smaller guy. He could play 3 tech as well. You see the Aaron Donald comparison because of the Pittsburgh connection there.
Right.
So, another guy that tested very well at the combine.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were some people that I knew that were sliding him into the first round, but up till about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was really considered a second round guy.
Yeah.
But there was some talk over the last few weeks of him sliding into the first round. Some of these arm lengths are crazy.
Yeah. That seems to be a
How
thing.
how are you such a big dude and only have 30-inch arms? that doesn't make any.
Some of these guys are almost built like a wrestler at 6'5".
I don't. How can you be that big and have 30-inch arms? I don't understand. That sounds T-Rex to me. Okay, that's exaggeration. Maybe not T-Rex short arms, but still. I mean, my arms are longer than that.
Alligator arms, I guess. Is that a good compromise?
All right. It's looking like a very long night for Will Levis, I'll have to say.
Yep.
Like I said, Minnesota is really it, I think. Unless somebody trades up.
Seattle, maybe? But I still, at that point, I think they kind of trust.
Yeah, Seattle's picking next, aren't they, at 20? Seattle might take him here at 20. That is another one that – because he did go out there. He did meet with Pete Carroll. And since he's still on the board, I don't think they thought he would be available at 20.
And Baltimore gave Lamar his big extension, so it's not going to be there at 22.
No.
Chargers have Herbert, obviously.
Right. It's not going to be there. You got Minnesota at 23. Jacksonville's got their guy with Lawrence. The Giants are next, I think, at 25.
And they went for Daniel Jones there.
Yeah. I don't think they're going quarterback. And then you got Dallas. They're not going quarterback. That's what I'm saying. The Seahawks here might. It is a chance, a possibility of the Seahawks because he did meet with Seattle, and Seattle was out for his pro day and all that stuff. I don't think they thought he would be here at 20.
Yeah, that's quite surprising. You saw them going for AR at 5 a lot as an option.
Yeah.
I think that maybe even going Will Anderson if he fell a little bit, depending on even.
Yeah. There were some
one
people
of the edge rushers. Will.
There was a lot of people that I know that was hoping that Will Anderson would still be there at 5.
Yeah.
For Seattle. Yeah.
Even Jalen Carter as well was another.
Yeah.
This pass rushers in general were all kind of seen going to.
So you're right. It could be. I mean, they could take Levis here. It's either here or Minnesota. I'm telling you. Or if not, he's in trouble of going in the first round.
Yep.
I just don't see another team unless somebody trades up. That's crazy. No wide receiver and no tight ends yet. And Levis is still waiting. ESPN and Alex said there was a 1.1% chance that he would be available at the 20th pick.
Yeah. I don't know how they come up with that number, but that sounds.
I don't either.
Let's see. And they're taking the full time with the clock here.
Yeah, there's a minute left on the clock for. I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle takes him at 20.
Let's see. Pick is finally in.
I'm kind of surprised at 20 that there's been no tight ends who there's a lot of tight ends in this draft that everybody said were good tight ends.
Yeah,
and no wide receivers.
I saw a lot with the tight ends, a lot of like saying not that they would necessarily go in day one, but that you would see a lot of early day two picks with the tight ends where you could see Laporta, Musgrave, Kincaid, a lot of those guys kind of go one after the other in the second round here. So maybe they close out the first round doing that, but we'll have to see. This definitely at least just feels like the longest pick. I know they took a ton of time, and now it's from the time that we see
This one and the Jets, the 15th pick, they took a long time too.
Yeah.